I'm going to move on to the next speaker now, who is Soulma. She is she's already spoken to Faith to Faith. She was at our launch. She has worked in underground ex-Muslim organisations. We can't really speak about them, but we do have sort of networks, and she's worked on those for a very long time, sort of like an unsung hero almost. You don't really see what she does publicly. So she left Islam about 2 years ago, and I'll just hand it on over to her and let her say what she has to say.
Do you have to press anything, or just hold it?
That's really good.
So I'm just going to share some of my experiences with you guys today, really. As Ali said, I did leave Islam about 2 years ago, so I will mention the age because it's significant in that sense. I left it when I was 37, so I spent 37 years believing in Islam. I wasn't like full-on practicing. I was always liberal, but the belief was there. And I've got 2 girls. One's 12, she's going to be 13 in April, and another girl who's 11, she'll be 12 in July. So at the time when I left, they were young as well. They were 9 and 8. So I had to face the challenge of changing my own thought pattern and, convincing myself that there wasn't something wrong with me, as well as trying not to confuse the girls because, it's important, for me it was important that they still have family, they've still got their dad in their life, and their dad is full on practicing. So it was a challenge in that sense. So I want to talk about, some of the stuff that I found. For me, I felt there was a lot of unfairness towards women stemming from Islam, from my own journey and experiences. So, Magdalene already mentioned about the talaq and getting a divorce. And at the time when I wanted to leave my husband, I went from place to place asking for advice. I tried to find women in the Sharia council. And, I was told the same thing. Does he drink? Is he a gambler? Is he abusive? No. Well, then, you can't, he has to give it. And basically, it took 2 years before he finally decided to, accept and give me a talaq. And it was so easy for him. He just had to say it 3 times. Simple as that. And I went through 2 years of hell, and the marriage breakdown I got blamed for because I wasn't, wearing hijab, I wasn't practicing, you didn't do your marriage as you should have according to Islam. So therefore, maybe if you'd done it Islamically, it would have worked out. And actually, the failure of the marriage was very much him, and he admitted it himself. But I had to face it with society being a woman. So I found that to be very unfair. Even when we actually got married, you have to have, you've got to have a male witness. 2 women are equal to 1 male. So you've got to have a male witness no matter what. I don't have a dad around, and my mum's brought me up, and I have sisters, and my brother was very young at the time. And I don't really, I had to ask a distant relative to stand witness because my ex-husband had reverted to Islam, so his family were Christian, so they couldn't stand witness. So all these things, I sort of experienced. But at the time, I didn't actually see anything wrong with it. That's the weird thing. I was just like, yeah, this is normal. I didn't question it. Even when we split up, at the time he wasn't giving maintenance for the kids, and I tried to do things Islamic. I really wanted to start because I was being told you're not doing things Islamically, that's why things aren't working out. I tried to do it Islamically, and what was I told? Oh, you're not making the girls wear hijab, you're not taking them to Islamic school, therefore he doesn't need to give you money. He can buy them food and clothes, but they weren't living with him. Or he can fight for custody for them, he can have custody of them, but he doesn't need to give you any money. So those were the kind of frustrations that I faced. I found that a lot of it was in favour of the man. And same as Sarah, the more I looked into Islam and the more I sort of tried to become more practicing, the more I moved away from it and thought, actually, it doesn't sit with me. The hijab was a big sticking point with me. I could just never seem to cover. I read essays, I took out books, I asked questions. It just didn't fit well with me. I'm very passionate about dancing. I love to dance, and I was never allowed to dance growing up, And after I got my divorce, around the age of 30, I thought, no, I want to keep fit, I've had 2 kids, I need to lose the baby weight, blah, 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 so I'm going to go and do dancing. And my passion just ignited. I was like, oh my God, I love this, it feels so right, everything about it. But I felt so guilty for doing that. You know, and then every Ramzan would come and I'd say, right, no music, no dancing, I'm going to try and be good. I was depressed as hell throughout that month, okay? And Eid day would come, and what was the first thing I did? Blasted my music out, you know? And I thought, this isn't right, it just doesn't feel good for me. And then having 2 daughters, that further set in stone my doubts, because, you know, you're thinking about the way you bring them up. So when they were a lot younger, they don't question, they're just kids, they get on with it. But as they grew older, so they started to question, and I didn't. I grew up being told what to do and following that, end of. Kids nowadays, you can't tell them what to do. They tell you stuff, yeah? And they would ask me questions, and, you know, when I would give them the answers, it just sounded stupid. You know, why can't I listen to the radio? You know, I did put them in Saturday Islamic school, and why can't I listen to the radio? I'm scared, you know, my Muslim teacher told me that I'm going to go to hell because I'm listening to music. What am I going to say to him? What's wrong with the song? You know, it wasn't swearing, it wasn't anything. Kids naturally, even, you know, psychology, science has proven that children learn better to rhymes and things like that in music. It's just something that's there, it's biological. And I couldn't give them a right answer. And you can't say to them, Allah knows best. They don't accept that. You know, I grew up accepting it, but they won't. So yeah, as they got older, the pressure hit even more, because they were now being told by their dad, you have to pray. You've got to cover and stuff like that. So how do I tell my 9-year-old daughter, you need to cover and not show your body and not show your hair, because men are perverts, essentially. They can't control themselves, and they're going to look at you in a certain way. And if something bad happens to you, it's your fault. A 9-year-old, she's my baby. Like, for God's, you know, and that really, you know, for me, that was a big sticking point. You know, I realised that, nah, it's not sitting well with me at all. The people who should be ashamed if they look at her like that are the people who look at her like that, and not all men are like that. So why is religion trying to make out that, you know, all men are this way? And that is what the ideology is. Yeah. So that was one of the toughest things for me. You know, and that kind of made me realise that a woman's value is placed on her clothing. Why am I less of a woman, or why am I referred to as a whore, slut, someone who deserves no respect, someone who should see myself as no respect because I don't wear a hijab? You know, why should my daughters be looked at that way? Why should they feel that way? You know, why should a woman's modesty be linked with a hijab? One thing I've always said, if it was never, imagine the hijab never existed, it wasn't, you know, ever written down, would people choose to dress this way? You know, I don't personally, for me, I don't think it is a freedom of choice. You're taught to believe that it brings you closer to God, it gives you modesty and all that kind of stuff. And actually, you know, it's not the case. I've spent many times having to say to my daughter, because their dads, you know, said stuff to them such as, oh, look at the way that girl's dressed over there, tut, tut, tut. And I've had to say to my daughter, it doesn't matter how somebody is dressed. That doesn't determine whether they deserve something or not deserve something, or their respect. You know, so what? So what if I'm coming home in shorts or a short skirt? Does it give someone the right to do something bad to me? You know, and when I put the human value to them, and had to explain that, imagine if it's me, does it mean I deserve it? They were like, no, you don't. So it's been difficult trying to explain to a child in a way where they'll understand and without being too sort of harsh, as I guess. So that's one of the struggles that I've faced, really. Sorry. So when I did essentially sort of leave Islam, one of the biggest feelings for me was not having that feeling of guilt. You know, I could dance and listen to music and watch TV and feel happy. And I did genuinely feel happy. I didn't feel guilty about it. I didn't feel that there was anything wrong, really. And so that's how I brought up the girls as well. You know, it's actually been, I was worried that where are they going to get their morals from? Are they going to, you know, they're going to become teenagers? Are they just going to go out there and have sex and drink alcohol and become pregnant and stuff like that? But actually it's been better because they have a better understanding of humanity. They do things because, not for reward or fear, they do it because they understand about humanity and understand how, you know, someone should be. They have the freedom to be what they want, and that's what I encourage. And that's, you know, they know the difference between right and wrong. They go by examples. I'm very, very lucky to have very inspirational and influential women around me, such as these amazing women here. I have quite a few friendly faces in the audience, and I don't think these people understand how much they mean to me and my kids, like in that sense. It's awesome to be able to show them positive examples. And if any of you guys were my kids, I'd be so proud. So, you know, honestly, I so would. But yeah, the other thing is with regards to sort of, you know, with the group that Ali had mentioned, what I found is a lot of women were saying stuff like, you know, when we leave Islam, we're immediately accused of the fact that, oh, you just want to drink, you just want to sleep around. You know, they're being called whores and prostitutes all the time. And it's really disgusting, like it really is horrible. I've not heard any men complaining that they get called that. Maybe they're told that, oh, it's because you want to have sex and, you know, you want to do things that are haram. But women are called awful things, and that's something that I've come across. Even in my work, my line of work, I help a lot of people who sort of have a lot of complex issues, and I find that with a lot of the Muslim women, they have no, all they do is stay home and look after kids and bring up kids and do what their husband says. They have to ask permission for everything. They're not, you know, there are good bits and there are bad bits, I know that, but the problem is that they are there. So if they have to ask permission, they have to ask permission, end of. One thing that I want to do moving forward is, I do teach dance and stuff like that, and I'm trying to get involved with the community now, with Asian women especially, and I'm going to market it as a dance fitness program as opposed to Bollywood dance classes, which they'll never be allowed to go to, and I'm going to encourage them to come to keep fit, but I want to show them that they can have a life, there's more to it, they don't have to be at home cooking, cleaning, looking after husband, being a wife, a mother, and that's their duty, and that's where they're going to get closer to God in Islam. And you know, I hope I can sort of spread some sort of positivity and influence in that sense, really. Yeah, that's it, I guess. Yeah.
So thank you to Soulma, probably one of the best mums like ever. But thank you so much.